Florida homeowners have been blindsided by something terrible that's happening in Florida.
So it is a ghost town.
Prices are dropping, inventory is exploding, and we could be on the verge of a 2008-like crash here with values dropping by 20, 30, or even 40%.
The governor of Florida collapses as the state's real estate market implodes in chaos. The dream of paradise has curdled into disaster with families priced out, insurance bills destroying livelihoods, and investors fleeing in panic. The Sunshine State is drowning in fear, anger, and a political breakdown that feels impossible to stop.
The Florida housing market is on the verge of a devastating decline.
Florida looked unstoppable. For years, it was marketed as heaven on earth. No state income tax, endless sunshine, and a housing market that seemed to mint millionaires overnight. The dream was so seductive that entire families packed their lives into U-Hauls, leaving behind cold winters in New York, long commutes in Chicago, and sky-high rents in California. They came south chasing paradise. But was it really paradise? Or just a time bomb with palm trees?
So it is a ghost town.
They weren't even walking through the houses they bought. In Miami-Dade, nearly half of the deals closed without a single in-person visit. Buyers wired life savings after a shaky FaceTime call. Homes were no longer homes. They were commodities, collectibles, like sneakers on StockX or crypto coins in a digital wallet. But here's the brutal question. If houses aren't for living, what happens to the people who actually need them?
Have been on par with recent years. However, ABC Action News reporter Blake Phillips is listening to those business owners who say that has not been the case for them.
So it is a ghost town.
For many along John's Pass, business.
Locals found out the hard way. Teachers, nurses, firefighters, the people who kept the state running, were shoved aside. Homes that had belonged to families for generations were snatched away in bidding wars. The so-called Sunshine State wasn't shining on its own people anymore. It was shining on outsiders with deeper pockets. Isn't it ironic? The land of paradise was quietly exiling its own residents. Then came the sharks. Hedge funds, private equity giants, faceless corporations with endless cash. They didn't just buy homes. They swallowed entire blocks. Streets once alive with children playing, neighbors chatting, and backyard barbecues turned into ghost rows of Airbnbs. Entire neighborhoods became financial instruments. Tell me, when your neighbor is no longer a family but a hedge fund, is it even a neighborhood anymore?
One for the ages, where home prices decline by as much as 20, 30, maybe even 40% in certain parts of Florida. And this is no longer speculative, everyone. This is happening as we speak.
This wasn't just a real estate boom. It was a feeding frenzy. Blackstone, Invitation Homes, Nameless LLCS, all circling like predators that smelled blood in the water. And while Wall Street counted profits, ordinary Floridians counted losses. Their culture, their history, their sense of community. But how long can a playground for investors last before the swings start snapping?
Florida is losing people due to move-outs, with counties like Miami, Palm Beach, and Broward all losing people in 2024. And the reason for this all points to Florida's high cost of ownership, which is making many retirees pack up.
Beneath the glitz of fast money, another monster was lurking: insurance. Since 2022, 6 carriers have collapsed under mounting losses and lawsuits. Premiums that once cost $3,200 in 2021 skyrocketed past $8,000 by 2025 in parts of Miami. Companies went under, one after another, unable to survive the storms and lawsuits. Families who once paid a manageable premium suddenly faced bills so high that it felt like taking on a second mortgage. Imagine trying to sleep at night knowing your insurance costs more than your car, your groceries, maybe even your salary. That's like paying for a second mortgage just to keep a roof over your head. How do you chase the American dream when the fine print makes it a nightmare?
And listings overall are up 73% from the bottom. This right here tells you that the bubble has already imploded, and now is just a matter of time before reality sets in for sellers.
Banks weren't stupid. Condo associations passed massive bills to residents. $10,000 special assessments landing like grenades in family budgets. They pulled back. Many refused to finance coastal homes at all. Condo associations slapped families with surprise bills, $5,000, $10,000, even $20,000, leaving people stunned, broke, and furious. Dreams weren't just slipping away. They were being ripped apart invoice by invoice. What happens when the very system meant to protect you is the one that drags you under?
But here in Florida, that domino has already fallen, and price movement in real estate is very hard to reverse.
Then came the moment that changed everything. Hurricane Aaron. Winds howled toward Florida like a runaway freight train. It never even made landfall, but it didn't need to. Fear itself was the storm. Buyers vanished, contracts crumbled. Open houses stood empty. Lenders froze. Title companies refused to write coverage. Overnight, the music stopped, and Florida's booming dance floor turned into silence. If just the threat of a storm could break the spell, what would happen if one actually hit?
Points to Florida's high cost of ownership, which is making many retirees pack up, and they're fleeing and going to other states.
Suddenly, the American dream looked like a cruel joke. Homes that once sparked bidding wars now sat abandoned, gathering dust. Sellers grew desperate, throwing in shiny appliances, granite countertops, even free cars just to convince someone to sign. If you have to bribe people with a car to buy your house, is that really a dream? Or a clearance sale? The middle class? Gone. Miami leaned fully into being a playground for the rich. Mansions rose higher, luxury condos sparkled on the skyline, but affordable homes disappeared. The message was brutal and clear. If you're not wealthy, don't bother unpacking your bags. So who was Florida really for? Its people, or the billionaires circling above like vultures?
Tourism numbers have been on par with recent years. However,
And while families were drowning, the governor was smiling. He bragged about opportunity, giving speeches about prosperity, as if the collapse outside didn't exist. But U-Hauls lined the highways heading north. Neighborhoods emptied like someone flipped off the lights. The illusion cracked. What kind of leader celebrates growth when his own people are fleeing in record numbers? In desperation, he tossed out gimmicks. A rebate here, a billion-dollar plan there. But they landed like band-aids on bullet wounds. Families waited, storms loomed, and help never came.
But we do know that real estate tends to move very slowly, then all at once.
And when the pressure grew unbearable, the mask slipped. At press conferences, the once polished leader snapped at reporters, his suit soaked in sweat, his words laced with anger. He pointed fingers at Washington, at insurers, at the media, at everyone but himself. The man who had surfed the housing boom into the spotlight now stumbled through its wreckage.
But this is the same pace as the start of the '07 crash. And this line going straight down doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. All the metrics are pointing to further losses in the near future.
Today, Florida's housing market may look calm to outsiders, but beneath the surface, it's a minefield. Insurance is barely holding on. Millions of older homes are waiting to peel apart in the next storm. Investors are quietly dumping properties while pretending everything's fine.
And domestic migration losses are now creating a big issue in Florida's housing market in 2025.
Picture it. A row of condos by the beach, glass facades sparkling under the sun. From a distance, they look untouchable. But inside, half the units are empty. Owners have fled. Investors can't find buyers. Elevators creak. Maintenance fees soar. Paradise is rotting from the inside out. So what happens when a house of cards this big finally collapses?
All the metrics are pointing to further losses in the near future.
Florida still bears scars, hurricanes that tore through communities, the Surfside condo collapse that still haunts survivors. Every new storm warning reignites panic. Every crack in a wall feels like an omen. Buyers hesitate. Lenders stall. Confidence evaporates like morning dew in the Florida heat.
This surge in inventory is being caused by a collapse in buyer demand combined with lots of sellers who are looking to get out of the market before the crash gets worse.
Imagine pension funds tied to mortgage-backed securities suddenly wobbling. Imagine banks tightening lending nationwide because of Florida's chaos. Imagine buyers in Arizona or Texas suddenly asking themselves, are we next? So the question isn't only what happens to Florida. The real question is, what happens if Florida's collapse spreads? Will the next storm slam into Miami? Or will its shockwaves hit your city too? Like the video and hit the subscribe button to get more updates.